Good morning, America.
Good morning. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. I had a bunch of stuff I was going to say, but then he ran long. This is good. I usually start off with something by saying this. My name is unimportant, just my actions, the consequences of those actions, and the capability I deliver. Now, let me tell you my name. I'm Brian Ward, or I go by Garbage. Oh, they took it out. That's fine. There's a whole story behind that, but we can work through it. So I'm going to be going over the weaponization of AI and ML and how it's complicating the digital battlefield. I want to start with weaponization. So as Sass was just talking about, what we want to be able to do is any of these emerging technologies, we want to understand how can I leverage this to support a warfighter. Now, weaponization just doesn't mean you're going to do something kinetically. So you can talk about bullets and bombs and offensive cyber operations. But then also, too, how do I deter these things? And how do I deter my adversary? And then AI is how I derive information to make an informed decision. And I want to be able to do that to decision makers. Machine learning enables me to take rows and columns and make those rows and columns actually mean something. And then also ensure that the end user, that warfighter, understands how important it is to know what your schema needs to look like, what your format needs to look like for the data that you're getting. Don't worry, I will get to the slide. And then the digital battlefield. A battlefield is a place in which you meet your adversary. The digital aspect of that would be if I'm using a server, I'm in the cloud, I'm on a computer. Like how am I able to take a battlefield, digitize that, and then also be able to make informed decisions as to how I can either deter or attack said adversary. So I'll go over an operational vignette. Operation, think of it as the execution of a strategy. A vignette is a colorful illustration, because I'm colorful myself. Digitization of data acquisition. Understanding the importance of acquisition of data, the digital information / machine learning, and then ultimately artificial intelligence. Okay, the operational vignette, or you do not exist. I have always stated this, you are vaporware, you are nothing, unless when you deliver something to a warfighter or to an end user, they actually can use it, and you want that feedback, even if it's bad. I always joke that this face is built to get punched, and it gets punched a lot, and it gets paid well to get punched a lot. So here, to set the stage here, so this is in 2022. This was the withdrawal of Afghanistan. At this time, I was actually in Qatar, because I was in the forward deployed element for CENTCOM's forward headquarters. What you're seeing on the screen there is what Sass was talking about. This was 4 or 5 years of a culmination of something that he described as Project Maven. It was an algorithmic warfare cross-functional team that was started by DepSec Def Bob Work, and we had Lieutenant General Shanahan at the time, and then Drew Kukor, the wonderful psychopath that I love to death, who was actually leading the team. So what you're seeing here is now, I want everybody to really pay attention to this. The two individuals that are sitting in the front, obviously that's General Milley, who's the Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff at the time, and then the former SecDef. A lot of you, if you don't understand this, is that the SecDef, by fiscal year 26, is going to be a trillionaire. What does that mean? That means there's going to be a $1 trillion budget for the Department of Defense. And the individual who's going to make a decision or determination on how to spend that money is sitting in a chair there, understanding that this is what software looks like. This is what software in action looks like. This is what it means to say I'm going to weaponize something, especially the advent of emerging technology that's not just, again, bombs and bullets, but the ability to see and command and control even through a data management platform. Now, yes, there's a very specific company that you're seeing that's up there on that screen as he's getting briefed on the disposition of forces within Afghanistan. So that's Abbey Gate, that's everything that you're seeing within Jalalabad and everything that had occurred since. This was also all the sensors that were available. So the idea is that when you're talking about combined joint all-demand and command and control, does the individual who actually control these things able to see all the sensors that would employ or help them to make an informed decision? And in this instance, it was for Chairman Milley and Secretary Austin to understand how General Carrillo at the time and then General Donahue at the time were moving their forces within Jalalabad and then being able to do that in real time. This is where the edge component comes in of what Sass was talking about. If you can get to the edge, the echelon 5, if you will, and we say echelon 0 with all those people sitting in there, because there's also some National Security Council members who are a part of that as well, is to say that if the individuals who are kicking down doors, throwing grenades, or running around tents have the ability to see what their commander wants them to see in real time, Because the example here is that what actually the SecDef and the chairman are looking at is General Kurilla's map. He's actually informing that map. He's enriching that map through, again, a data management platform that is agnostic to whatever cloud. So he can talk about AWS, Microsoft, Oracle, Google. Also, too, that you have local instantiations that enable you to reduce the latency of accessing such things. Again, this gets after weaponization. I cannot say that I can use anything in a weapons capacity if I can't do it in real time when I need to make a decision, because it's all about decision making. So to finish this though, so with this within Afghanistan, this helped us to understand where our disposition of forces were. This included imagery and video, because this is how you get after AI. You provide them a system that they can use within their workflows on a day-to-day basis. And then you say it's AI enabled. What does that mean? That means that as I make models, or not me, but other companies make models, through a arduous process of data acquisition, processing to include pre-processing, labeling, and then model development. That means you're introducing the weights and biases of the data that you have labeled to trillion-dollar companies or million-dollar companies that then produce AI, and then the model that they produce, you validate, you then evaluate, you then integrate. Integrate meaning that you're putting it into different systems that will enable decision makers to leverage them. And after you integrate, you implement. That's where I come in. I deploy, I go all over the world, and I show people, hey, this is what you can do with this AI-enabled system, but more specifically with the AI itself. And then you get laughed at because it's just as bad as Alexa was when it first got deployed. You ask her a question, she had no idea what the hell you were talking about. It was the same thing with computer vision models. I don't need a computer vision model to detect a vehicle for me, or a person. I know what a vehicle or a person looks like, but I want to reduce your cognitive load. I want you as a human being, instead of taking all this time to be able to look at these different objects and then call them out, I want AI to be able to do that for you. So then you can do your report and then use the information, the outputs of that AI to get you to a more informed decision, or at least a more informed product that gets to decision makers. So what this then goes to, and some of you all probably saw a New York Times article, I was in Poland 2 days after Russia invaded Ukraine. Why? Because I'm a great American. And because of Val and her team, before we all became Core Force, I was blessed to be able to deploy with Donahue and his team. And what I was asked to do by that man there, Chairman Milley, was to take the border control cameras that were in Poland and be able to push that back to the National Mission Coordination Center, which is what you're seeing here in this image. The reason why that was because we wanted to not only run our computer vision models on the video itself, but we wanted to better understand the types and disposition of people who are coming across the border. You're able to do that if you have a data management system or platform that enables you to take all these disparate data sources and sets and then put them into one place that you can say is centralization while also decentralizing. What I mean by that is saying that, yes, everyone can access this same, I won't say image, but this same platform, this same landing zone through whatever means. But then when you do that, you need to understand what are the latency requirements? What's the bandwidth? What's the throughput in order to be able to access those things? And why this image is so important is because, again, the trillion-dollar man gets to understand why does this cost so much? Or what is the cost to this? Why do I have to pay for licenses? Why do I have to pay for data? Why do I have to pay for data cleansing and sanitization and processing? Because then it gets you to a more informed decision. So, digitization of data, acquisition. Data is a commodity, it's money. Everything you're doing right now is data. I'm wearing a watch that's telling me my heart rate is so high right now. But because of that, I have a data point. I know where my health is, or at least I know aspects of my health. I can know if I have some sort of issue with my heart. But see, that's all data. So then how do I digitize that and put it in a place in which, or a format that I can execute something off of? So here I'm gonna give you an example of, I think this is in Russia, and as that article had described, there were points of interest and tracks of interest, because we don't say targets, because Ukraine does their own thing, they have their own rules of engagement. We support our partners through the provision of information. So here, think of this as data acquisition. I have now acquired an image. It's been processed and pre-processed, so we could just say that. Now, at this point, within this pipeline, I need to understand, how do I get to AI? How do I get to artificial intelligence understanding what these objects are in the screen? I have to, again, process it, rows and columns, so that I can get outputs through machine learning as well, because then I can automate some of these things rather than manually going out and acquiring data. So then with higher outputs of that, what this allows for me to do is to then label these objects. And then when I label these objects, if you go back to the image of the SecDef and the chairman, when they see these things, they don't have to infer on their own. It's already being presented to them as, oh, I know what this object is. I know this is a part of my strategy. I know this is a part of the things that I actually want to engage on. I always say that everything is a target, though not everything is targetable. How does something become a target, though? I have to identify it. I have to know where it is in time and space and place. And that's what Sass was also talking about, stealing my thunder. And I labeled this myself, by the way, very manually intensive. That's why I'm telling most people, no, your jobs aren't going anywhere. However, something else, and I think Rick mentioned this earlier, was to say that if you have artificial intelligence that can detect things, that can derive some sort of information from what is being presented, it infers, then why can't you use that same AI to take more raw data to then produce something like this, so then it can learn from itself. But then it only knows as much or as little as the data that you feed to it. So high quality data is something that is absolutely necessary in order to get after weaponization, complicating the digital battle space, because it gets complicated because now I have all these labeled. So what does that mean? That means I know what I care about targeting or conducting an operation on. And if I know that, and I have a system that enables me to make a decision, then I get this beautiful image. Now, why is this beautiful? Think of it this way, is that AI was enabling a decision maker to understand that if they hit this button, because there's always a human in the loop, there's never gonna be any of this Terminator nonsense, not at least within the Department of Defense. However, what you can do is have a human in the loop that says, I have verified these targets that the AI has picked up. And I have also verified and cross-referenced with all of my combat support agencies and the like, that these are things that we care about. They're not on a do not strike list, they are things that we do need to engage upon, because it either helps our allies or partners or ourselves in whatever mission set that we have. I understand the workflow because the workflow took from intelligence reports to that decision maker to then say yes or no. And obviously you got legal involved, but lawyers are what lawyers are. So with this, now I am here. I've made a decision, I was able to make that decision. Not only was I more effective, I was more efficient, because timing is everything. Without understanding how important timing is, and then also the number of targets that I have, then I'm able to apply whatever other logistical information I need. If I don't have enough munitions, I know now to go talk to my FOR or my logistician, my logics officer, to say that I am missing something, I don't have enough munitions in order to be able to action this target. And I know that I don't because AI has already given me this answer. So when you think about it that way and you say, how do I complicate a battle space? I give you too many targets with a higher fidelity. I give you so many targets that you might not have enough munitions to actually action them. And then if that's the case, I'd much rather have that as a problem set than not knowing where my targets are. So I will end with this. An operational vignette encourages the digitization of the battle space as ones and zeros. That's for the smart people in here. Create a symphony of despair for its adversaries. What does CGS mean by that? CGS is chief garbage singularity. But CGS is saying that if I'm going to digitize a battle space while also keeping my humanity, I want to be empathic to those who are adversaries, because it's not always just someone's insane because they dislike you. You do have to have respect for your adversary because you want to understand how they fight, why they fight, where do they want to fight, what do they want to fight with. But then if you are able to outmatch them in cyberspace, again, even with offensive cyber operations, defensive cyber operations, or in the actual battle space with bombs and bullets, you want to be able to have high fidelity on what you believe a target is, or what you believe you want to actually execute. And with that, it enables you to have a more efficient, higher lethality, and higher output within your department. And I think that's it.